Hi, this is Margaret Byrd and welcome to Color Quest and welcome to the Boulder Mountains in Idaho. Every year I come here around this time because it's a very special place for my family. It's actually where my mother is buried, and my brother and I visit to spend some time in loving memory of the woman that raised us. So if you go back and look at videos, I have quite a few for the last 4 years where I brought you along. We looked at things like birch bark, aspen leaves, and other leaves from this area, as well as looking at what pine needles will do in botanical printing. Today I want to do a very simple process that I just learned about, and we'll do that specifically with the aspen leaf. So let's go pluck some aspen leaves and get back to my traveling studio to see what printing we can do with a little elbow grease and iron. As you can see behind me, I'm in an aspen grove along the Boulder Creek, and some years I've been here a little bit later in the season and they are a vibrant yellow and orange, absolutely exquisite. This year, a little bit earlier in September, they're just starting to change. So we don't have quite the vibrancy, but you can almost smell the autumn air on its way in to welcome winter. So we're going to be picking from a few trees, and we'll get a mixture of both the green aspen leaf as well as some that are changing. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in our process today, but why not? We have some. So let's go find us some aspen leaves. Been following me for the past years, you know that I do a lot of traveling, and when I travel I try often to do some kind of creative activity in and around natural color, and you always have to improvise a bit when you're on the road, and that's exactly what I'm doing today. Sometime in the last few months I bumped into a video about a process whereby people were using a press to make an imprint, almost like an embossing technique of a leaf onto paper or fiber, and then using an iron water solution to either brush it over where it is embossed or pressed into the fiber, or doing an iron water dip. Now, funny enough, I had a student, Rebecca, thank you very much, who brought this up to me while I was at the Harvesting Hues workshop. She asked me about it and I said, you know what? I want to try it out. Now, what I have seen in videos has been putting the leaves in between two pieces of fiber and running it through a press of some kind, like a Cricut press. I don't have anything like that. And I thought, you know what? I bet you I can do some kind of embossing just using some very basic tools that I have from my days of working with ceramics and also in my encaustic studio. So let's take a look at the supplies and then let's see if we can't start pressing these leaves to welcome the tannin from inside and create an environment with iron that will leave us a botanical print. All right, let's quickly look at the supplies. Here are the leaves that I picked yesterday. I have them sitting in water so they wouldn't dry out. I have ferrous sulfate, which is what I'm going to be using to bringing about a tannin iron reaction for the print. I'm going to be using these watercolor cards so that I have a 2-ply piece to be able to be doing my rubbings, and I'm going to be rubbing with these tools. These are from my studio where I use them in encaustic, but these are just 2 different ways that I can work with using a rubbing and a pressing technique. I've got a towel because I'm going to want to be keeping the cards damp but not super soaked. I have a pan here filled with water, which is what I'm going to put the cards in first just to get a little bit of wetness. And then I have some hot water here that I'm going to use to pour in here to dissolve my ferrous sulfate. So that is my setup. I've got just a harder surface here so I can press against it while I'm using this technique of trying to rub the leaves. So let's get going and see what we can make. So the idea here is that I'm pressing hard enough to be able to release some of that tannin that's in the leaves, and then that tannin will interact with the iron. This did not work very well, and it could be a number of reasons why I didn't press hard enough, or there wasn't much tannin in the aspen leaves. So I have a birch tree right behind me, so I'm going to grab a few of those leaves. Let's try it with that, something that's just been immediately plucked from the tree. Give it a whirl, see if we get a different result. Well, that worked a little bit better. We got that interaction. So what happens there is that we were seeing the tannin and the iron interacting and creating those black lines, which means this is a way in which you could get a black and white botanical print from something like a leaf. So it's kind of a fun play. You're not going to be getting the color that you might get from pounding or from steaming because you're not transferring that pigment from the leaf, but just using the tannin and the iron. Now I'm going to go ahead and try one more time with the golden aspen leaves. I don't really expect it to be much better. Let's just try it just to experiment because that's what we do. Experimentation. Here we have the first one, which was with the green leaves from the aspen, First time I've ever tried it. Probably didn't press hard enough. You can see areas where more tannin came out on the edges where the stems were, but I also left it in the water longer thinking maybe it would develop, but in fact all it did was sort of color the paper. So here's the second try with the yellow aspen, and we got a much softer print. It was a little bit more successful. I didn't leave it in for very long, and we got a very subtle view of the leaves. Probably could have pressed them a little bit harder, but it's a much sweeter, gentler print. And then of course this is with the birch tree that's behind us, and look, we got more of the results that I expected, where you can see the tannin came out and interacted with the iron, and we just got this very simple black and white print. You can see the top and the bottom because we folded it. Honestly, I think for traveling, it's kind of a fun, different way. You don't have to bring much in the way of materials, and always fun to experiment when you're on the road. Okay, so what did I learn? It works. Definitely, I believe if you had some kind of a press where you could really make that embossed imprint, you'd be able to get more of that tannin out. I also think, just in general, different leaves have different tannin levels. So if you have the time and the energy, you want to give this a try, why not, right? Go grab some leaves and see what different kinds of leaves will do. Try it at different times of year. You know, the tannin content in leaves can change as time changes. I think it's a great way to have a better understanding of that tannin and iron reaction for bringing about blacks and grays in our practices. So always just great. And again, if you use paper, it's never quite as near and dear. Now I have these cute little cards to remember my time here in Central Idaho. If you don't have ferrous sulfate and you want to make some iron water, you could do the same thing with that. And that is a simple process. I have a video here at the very beginning of my channel where I make iron water from rusty nails, vinegar, and water. Now, next week on Color Quest, would you believe I'm traveling again? This time I'm heading to Europe. So, not quite sure what's going to come about while I'm there in the ways of natural color, but it will be fall, and I'm sure there are going to be lots of things in nature to inspire me to play with color alongside you on Color Quest. Have a great week, and I can't wait to see you next time. Can I help you with something, sir? Did you want to speak to me? Do you want to say something to the people at Color Quest? Okay.